Well, hello there, watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with the Times columnist and leader writer, Sebastian Payne, and the New Statesman's associate political editor, Rachel Cunliffe. Lovely to see both of you. Welcome.
Hello. Good evening.
So as ever, to the front pages, let's start with the Metro, which leads with the government's plan to introduce compulsory digital IDs for all adults in the UK. The Eye points out that one of the government's main aims in launching the so-called Brit cards is to bring the small boats crisis under control. The Mirror highlights the potential problems the new system could cause for the elderly and raises privacy concerns. The Daily Mail reports on what it calls furious backlash to the plans for millions to sign up for those digital ID cards. While the Telegraph features an admission from the Prime Minister that his party made mistakes over migration. The Times says the PM is bringing in the scheme to stop immigrants slipping into the shadow economy. And the Daily Star also leads on the government's ID plan with the headline, Keir's card trick. Meantime, the Financial Times hears that investors are worried at the prospect of Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham becoming Prime Minister because they think he'll borrow too much, that bond market question. The Guardian reports that Microsoft has revoked the Israeli military's access to technology, which allowed them to survey Palestinian civilians after it emerged that spies had kept their findings on one of the software giant's cloud storage services. And The Sun's main concern is the love life of actor Sacha Baron Cohen. So let's talk more. Sebastian and Rachel are here. Surprising you haven't gone straight to the Daily Mail on this, who are in furious uproar already. But anyway, what are we anticipating the reaction will be when we finally hear confirmation of this plan for digital IDs? It's hard to not say cards, isn't it? But digital IDs.
Digital IDs, yes. Well, if our viewers think we've gone back to 2003 when we last had this debate, then it feels an awful lot like that. Not least because Tony Blair's also in the headlines, as we'll get to later on.
And we had Peter Mandelson a few weeks ago.
I had Peter Mandelson, exactly.
Deja vu.
Wasn't Andy Burnham at the time a Blairite and is now slightly Corbyn-like? But that's, I'm digressing already.
It was back then when he used to admit to being a graduate of Cambridge University. Yeah, so this digital ID plan has been knocking around kind of brief for a good couple of months now, and the theory is that the government needs to know who exactly is coming in and out of the country, and you do that by having a big centralised ID system. Now, last time this was debated in the early noughties, when Tony Blair was Prime Minister, it was all about digital ID, physical ID cards, and there was a big backlash from civil rights campaigners and libertarians who felt it was a very un-British thing to have the kind of show me your papers, and it could also lead to concerns about racial profiling, individual liberty, and government overreach. Now, fast forward 20 years, and this debate now is all about digital ID. So if you've got your phone and you have your kind of digital pass on your Apple Wallet or whatever the Android equivalent is, then the idea is that you won't have to have something with you the whole time. But this is going to kick off a big, big debate, much like we had then about whether this is the right thing to do. Is this going to work to reduce...
But is it the same opposition, or is the opposition now the libertarian right?
Well, I think it's... Well, last time, so David
Davis resigned. It was always in part the libertarian right and also the libertarian progressive left as well that had concerns about it.
The Lib Dems is a shorthand version.
Well, the Lib Dems have been the first out the block tonight to come out against this. Yeah. So they are leaning into this, the Liberal in their party's name. But, of course, the chief opponent is going to be Nigel Farage this time, and he's on the front page of some of the papers tomorrow saying that, you know, this is a kind of...
I can see you're reading from the Times. So
I am, yes. It represents an attack on the freedoms of law-abiding Brits. So you've got him on the one side, and you have the government on the other side. Keir Starmer's giving this big speech tomorrow at a progressive conference where he's expected to come out and make the case as well as talk about other things. But fascinating theoretical one, but it's going to happen pretty quickly by the end of the decade. We'll have to have these things.
I was trying to work out if that's quick. Anyway, yes.
Well, it's quick to roll out a scheme to everyone trying to work in the country. What I think is interesting and misguided about the framing of this is that's absolutely right. The debate has been raging about ID cards or digital IDs for the last couple of months. But the think tanks that have looked into it have been quite clear that it's not just about migration, that there are huge benefits in some kind of centralised government ID system that would actually make it easier for people to access public public services. Because right now, you've got a passport number, you've got a driving licence number, you've got a government gateway ID, for people who know what that is, you've got a tax number, you've got an NHS number, I could go on and on and on. And these government departments...
You remember them all, don't you?
I remember all of them, and I've got unique passwords for all of them, and it's never an issue at all. And basically, the idea is, if you, like Estonia has, if you had a single digital ID that you could use for everything, it would streamline the process when citizens engage with public services, whether you want a doctor's appointment, or you want to file your taxes, or you want to vote, or you want to start a business, and it would actually make it easier and make government more accountable to citizens. I think there are lots of ways that you can sell a digital ID card in terms of this will make your life better, even though it's a bit inconvenient at the start. However, it's not being framed like that at all. It's being framed as we need this to keep the illegal immigrants out.
Which is the eye, while you're discussing.
Yes.
Green card digital ID will be made law for all adults in a bid to tackle small boats.
Yes, don't frame it around the small boats.
Yeah, can I just pick up on what you're saying? The downsides, lovely sell, by the way, the downsides would be cybersecurity. We've seen what's happened to Jaguar Land Rover, M&S, this horrendous nursery incident as well. But also the fact they feel like they're tracking our data, they're tracking where we are. You know, the sense that Big Brother's watching you type sense, which we've heard all about for years.
And also the cost. You haven't none of the papers are mentioning how much it's going to cost.
It was a lot about the fact it wasn't possible to organise.
How expensive it might be.
Well, I think by the way, those are still both valid arguments that will be had, because let's think of all the fantastic public sector projects to digitise the country that have gone so well. Like, I mean, remember the COVID app is one that comes to mind that took about 6 months.
The NHS IT upgrades.
Yeah, and the fact that the NHS is still the world's biggest owner and user of fax machines because they've still not managed to upgrade their systems to a good enough level. So, yes, the ability of Whitehall to actually do and build this thing is going to be tough. But there is, you know, Pat McFadden, who's the very influential cabinet minister on all these matters. He was in Estonia and gave an interview to the Times recently where he was explaining, as Rachel said, this is the way we need to go. And on the one hand, you could say to people, you log on to gov.uk and you can see your portal where you've got your tax return, you've got your NHS, you've got all the different elements of the state, and you can get there. A lot of the systems are already there individually from all the things you mentioned, very well remembered for all of them. And so you could just say in one way, this is just bringing it all together into one single system. But I think the fact is, the fact that it's been framed as this is about stopping the boats as per the I paper. The problem about this is we do need to better track who comes in and out of the country. There's no doubt about that, or it's kind of mad. There's not a system there already. You have passports, but it'd have to link into the passport system.
So we will come onto the front of the Daily Mail, but, you know, inside pages are saying Britain joins the illustrious ranks of North Korea, China and Taliban-ruled Afghanistan.
And also the vast majority of Europe.
Exactly, and that's the point I was going to bring in, which is that the French have long complained that you have the grey economy, the black market, people slip away. That's one of the pull factors, and it's about killing off the pull factors. So, you know, this is about, we're becoming like East Germany, the economy's moribund, socialism rules, police come knocking if you say or think the wrong thing, now in an authoritarian new plan that'll make Britain even more like East Germany. Citizens will be forced to carry ID cards. So
Estonia,
they've staked their flag
Scandinavia.
in the sand.
All of those awful authoritarian countries that we don't want anything to do with. Look, I think.
But back to the grey economy, right?
Yes.
How do people work? And how would this stop them working? That's the point.
I think
countries like France watching on.
The idea is that employers would scan your digital ID card or need proof that you have one before allowing you to work. Now, there are already rules about who can work here, and employers are meant to check, but we know that they don't always check. We know that it's quite easy for people in the grey economy to use other people's IDs, and the point about Emmanuel Macron stressing that it's a real pull factor, one of the reasons why people want to cross the channel in small boats to get from France, a safe country, to Britain, is because it's too easy to work in the grey economy there. Again, I just want to go back to the fact that I don't think the framing of all adults have to do this in bid to tackle small boats is helpful for the government at all. I think you should frame it as digital ID cards for all adults in order to make it easier for you to access public services. That's a sell people can get behind.
But I think one issue on all this is that, by the way, the grey economy, this stuff is already illegal. It is illegal to be here if you don't have a permit or a visa or right to be here. It's not the fact we can't track it, that we don't have enforcement of it, you know. So one thing you're going to hear about is, you know, drivers who are, you know, delivery drivers or what, have you got the right permit? But the fact is no one's checking them at the moment. If you want to work in this country, you need to have a national insurance number. That's always been the case. The problem is we don't have enforcement. So what they're trying to do is to automate that element of it. So it's all done automatically. automatically by algorithms, by a centralised system here. But I think the other point we should just mention as well, which I think has been flagged by the Mail, is that this is not going to be good for some older people who don't have smartphones. On my way to the studio, I was talking to my mother about this, who's very tech savvy, and she was saying that she'd be fine with it, but a lot of her friends will not be. They don't have smartphones. And if you don't have a smartphone, then what? Do you have to have a physical ID? And then we go all the way back to the questions of 20 years ago of showing me your papers, and if you don't have a smartphone on you, and then what happens if you don't have that? So there's a lot of stuff here to be explained and to be reassured about. But ultimately, I think Rachel is right. If you can sell this away and it is successful of automating the state, of automating government and do things easier, that's fine. But I do think it matters to say you can better track who comes in and out of the country and what they're doing.
To pick up on the Telegraph, if you don't mind, I mean, clearly this is an issue of our time. You could say it's driven by reform or not. If not, the baton's being picked up by Labour, isn't it? Starmer, Labour got it wrong on migration. The PM aims to counter-reform and far-right and will bring in mandatory digital... Well, how did they get it? What's he saying about how they got it wrong?
Well, this is really interesting. So he's giving a speech tomorrow and he has trailed his speech by writing a piece in the Telegraph, which I think already tells you everything that you need to know.
And Andy Burnham gave an interview to the Telegraph as well. So
yeah, but he gave
they're doing.
Yeah, but he gave it to the New Statesman first, and we'll get on to that later on. But he talks about how the belief in uncontrolled legal migration was nothing but good news from the economy, should never have been accepted on the left, and he says it's been too easy for people to enter the country and work in the shadow economy illegally. So he is taking ownership of that issue, very much moving on to the space that Nigel Farage wants to have the fight on. And actually, I think a lot of people in Labour and on the left will be quite surprised, maybe not surprised, disheartened by the fact that the Prime Minister is coming out much, much stronger on this issue than he was earlier in the week when Reform announced their plans to scrap indefinite leave to remain for millions of people who are here perfectly legally and were granted visas, were granted settled status by the UK. So the rhetoric coming out of Number 10 is really quite striking.
But I think...
Very quickly.
I was going to say, yes, that obviously this whole speech and intervention from the Prime Minister at this progressive conference tomorrow is about taking the fight to Nigel Farage.
It's about patriotism.
And he's going to try and draw a difference between his version of patriotism and what he wants to do and what Nigel Farage has done, because I think there's certainly been a feeling amongst Labour circles that Nigel Farage has set the whole political agenda over the summer, particularly over small boats, but also the questions about patriotism. And the PM is going to try and get on the front foot of it.
OK, sorry to hurry you along, because there's lots to talk about after the break, including why are investors worried about how Andy Burnham would run the economy if he became Prime Minister.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force.
It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Mr. President, what will you say next to Benjamin Netanyahu? In June 2009, did you stay at the apartment in Manhattan of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions about him.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent. I've interviewed some of America's most recognisable politicians. Should the Defence Secretary and the Vice...
Wait, what country are you
from? The UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting.
Mr Walker, you're anti-abortion, but 2 women say that you paid for their abortions. Are you a hypocrite, sir?
Connor, what did you say to the President? What did you say?
We had a great meeting. He was a great man.
I'm David Blevins, one of Sky's US correspondents, based in Washington, D.C. David Blevins from Sky News. Fire chiefs say that they're really stretched to the limit and running out of water. What have you got to say to that?
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here.
Why only in America? Why is this American exceptionalism? I just want to understand why you do not think that guns are the problem.
Why is this just an American problem?
The anger too, and the division.
Where are you from? From Sky News, UK.
Yeah.
Back up.
Mr. Navarro, can
Well, it's
you
I'm allowed to
Mr.
ask questions,
Navarro?
aren't I? I'm Mark Stone, and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding, Mr. Musk. Has your ego and ignorance, sir, cost Ukrainian lives?
David Cameron needs to worry about his own country, and frankly, he can kiss my ass.
Mr. Patel, did you endanger public safety when you said the killer was in custody?
Free wherever you get your news.
What words do you have for Harry Dunn's family today?
Have a nice day.
Do you fear a fourth indictment?
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war.
This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
I want to start the programme today with a name, a story that I can't get out of my head. The campaign has now started. This is your chance. Tell people this is the politics hub. It's not correct. The tax burden is projected to go up.
No, I am talking about
no, but I'm not. This is my interview. Look, this is ridiculous.
No one does care about us.
I'm really interested in that. On the politics hub, we like to push the boundaries. He's got the majority. The question is, what is he going to do with it?
Welcome back. You're watching the press preview. Joining me once again, Sebastian, Payne and Rachel Cunliffe. Welcome back to both of you. Rachel, I'm going to you on this one because obviously, you know, the New Statesman started all. This is Andy Burnham, specifically a sentence that he repeated in the Telegraph as well, which is, we've got to get beyond this thing of being in hoc to the bond markets.
Yes.
To which people have suggested he's like the new Liz Truss. Can you explain?
Yes, this is something that Andy Burnham, Mayor of Greater Manchester, said to the New Statesman editor Tom McTague in our cover story. You can go read it. He said it to other people
Available
too.
in all good news agents.
Available in all good news agents. It's taken a while, but Labour figures have started hitting back on this, and the comparison being made. I mean, there's a bit of a thing in Westminster at the moment as to who the new Liz Truss is. Keir Starmer often accuses Nigel Farage of being the new Liz Truss because he wants tax cuts without spending cuts as well. The Conservatives are trying to figure out what to do about their version of Liz Truss, and there's this battle going on in Labour about can we borrow more to be able to spend on all the lovely things that we want to do and all the things that our voters expect us to do. Andy Burnham is the highest profile person so far in Labour to have come out and said, basically, we should worry less about the bond markets, less about what international lenders think and just go for it. And the FT are leading on the fact that the economists who are working for the lenders in the bond markets, these sort of shadowy organisations, aren't too happy about this and are worried that it would add 40 billion to the UK's debt and could set off some kind of economic crisis similar to what we saw in the Liz Truss era, which obviously the people in Labour around Keir Starmer are quite happy to push that line, that it's an economically reckless thing to do. But I think that Andy Burnham has really touched a nerve with his comments, and that debate in Labour about do we need to spend more money, are Rachel Reeves' ironclad fiscal rules really helping us at the moment? That's going to be a major theme of conference, which starts Saturday?
Sunday.
Yeah, and actually Sir Keir Starmer, doing regional interviews today, said, our fiscal rules are ironclad for the very reasons of keeping the bond market stagnant. His allies suggesting that, Andy Burnham's the new Liz Truss, to which she then put out on X, he should be so lucky. So joining the fray.
Can I just say that we do have in the New Statesman an interview with Liz Truss this week as well. So,
pay us for the advertising soon.
Seb gets to talk about the Times.
Yeah, in the meantime,
Just to come in on that, I think Andy Burnham has done himself an enormous amount of damage with these interventions on the eve of Labour conference. Yeah. And I think within the Labour Party, there's an awful lot of anger that this conference was already going to be difficult for Keir Starmer, given the fact we could already be heading to a fiscal crisis before just deciding we don't care about bond markets.
Yeah.
And the fact is he's used this to go and basically make a not veiled at all pledge to try and be Labour leader, despite the fact he's not an MP, despite the fact there's no MP that wants to stand down to let him become MP again, despite the fact he might not win the by-election, despite the fact he would then have to challenge Keir Starmer. But I think he has basically just completely shot himself in the foot now, because Labour governments are traditionally not trusted for this exact reason, because they tend to borrow too much money and then spend the rest of the time paying it back. So this will trigger a lot of nerves.
I want to get to the next story, if you don't mind. Just very quickly on the way through, Daily Telegraph, Sir Keir Starmer's allies are planning to block Andy Burnham's return to Parliament, which is what you're suggesting. Very quickly, though, fascinating story, which is in front page of The Guardian and indeed The Telegraph. Tony Blair...
Wants to run Gaza.
Wants to run Gaza,
Wants to run Gaza, and Donald Trump thinks this is a good idea. So this is a plan to have Tony Blair lead an interim government in Gaza, a board that would have representatives of the Palestinian Authority and a couple of others. Hamas are also demanding that they would get a seat on it. But ultimately, for 5 years, Tony Blair would run the transition government, and everyone in Donald Trump's White House is cool with that. So I guess there's no issue whatsoever with that. No issue whatsoever with putting Tony Blair in charge of the Middle East again.
We've run out of time. Sebastian, I know you want to come in. Rachel,
Fantastic
Sebastian,
idea.
Thank you. See you.
I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories.
This is insane.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
We call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News, get the full story first.